very much for the invite today. I'm Gavin Jennings. I present Morning Ireland on RT Radio 1, weekdays, the most listened to radio show in the country. I'm usually up at 4 a.m, which means that by the time I get to this stage of the day, I'm usually next to useless. The good news is that I wasn't working this morning. The bad news is that I was awake half the night, listening and watching to the British election with the kind of grim fascination I usually reserve for watching England exit a World Cup on penalties. Unlike our guests here today, who I'm going to introduce you to in a moment, I didn't go to UCD. I attended NUI Galway, or as it was then, UCG, where I graduated in science and in medicine, and also helped to run a community radio station. University changed me. It offered me the opportunities, the time. I was there for 8 years, challenges, views, and ultimately the life that I lead now that I'm very grateful for. It was made possible with the help of what for me at the time certainly was a level playing field by coming through the Leaving Cert and the CAO, by my parents, by government grants, by a scholarship, by the help of friends and strangers, and no door that, if it wasn't pushed, didn't open for me, and I'm very lucky to be able to say that. My guests here have worked very hard to get where they are today, and they've been and are being helped, guided and facilitated by access to further education, by access initiatives like those here at UCD, which we're celebrating today. And we're going to hear their stories and then try and pick their brains, their very considerable brains, to see how more people can access further education, and in particular, people for whom doors are closed, or people for whom they feel that there are doors closed to them, who might just be scared to push them open. My 5 guests here, and I hope I get the order right. I had to check some of their pictures online before. Very brief introductions there. Colin Keogh, who helpfully had a beard, which helped me to identify him online, is studying here at UCD for a PhD in engineering. Charlotte Byrne beside him is studying for a Master's in Equality Studies. Beside me on my right, first to Anne Hayden, who's studying for a Master's in Food Business Strategy at UCD. Beside her, Billy Sines, who's studying for a degree in archaeology. And lastly, on my extreme right, Elaine Howley, who is a social science graduate of UCD. Would you give them all a warm welcome? Colin, I'm going to turn to you first of all, in no particular order. Can you just tell me about how you came into UCD? I'm going to move over the microphone to you, if that's okay.
Sure. I want to get it right now so I don't deafen everybody. So I came into UCD through the HERE scheme under New Era at the time, I think was what it was called back then. And I was the first from my extended family to have any interactions with a university or a college in general, so it was a distant foreign land to me. So as it kind of happened, so I had a background in, my father runs his own car mechanics business and has for his whole life. And I was always interested in cars and technology and kind of fixing things and breaking things and not always putting them back together again, that sort of thing. So my path was set from the kind of very beginning to go down that route. I was more than likely, and he still hasn't quite gotten over, I won't take over his business, but that was most likely what I was going to do. So it was most likely an apprenticeship to be a car mechanic, and that's what's good. But as it kind of happened when I was in primary school, I had significant issues with reading. I couldn't relatively do it for quite a long period, and it's still not something I thoroughly enjoy, but I have to do it. Unfortunately, everything doesn't come in pictures. It should. Everything should be in pictures. But so I had a remedial care teacher, and she gave me college SAT exams in spatial awareness, and that was the thing that saved my path from. Opened up the path very early into university for me. I was very able for it. Spatial awareness, maths, science. So through the like of maths and science, I then came through the experience that I had with the programs, access programs here. I had a taste for it, and it was a way for me to do what I wanted to do in a slightly higher level and a more involved level than I would have had a chance to do as a car mechanic. So that was my kind of route into it. I came in through New Era. I did an undergrad degree in engineering. I did a master's degree in energy systems engineering, and now I'm doing a PhD. So you were 8 years, I'm nearly like 11 now, so it's about time I leave at some stage. But I clearly like it, so if I can access in again afterwards, I'll possibly again. So.
Before I move on to Charlotte, can you tell me about the Rapid Foundation?
Yeah, so the Rapid Foundation was a charity project that myself and a colleague of mine here, Dr Shane Keogh, started like in 2015, I think it is. And what it is, it's a technology charity at its core. So we have access to huge amounts of technology in a school of engineering. So that's great. We can manufacture. I tell people I can make anything if you give us enough time and money. But time as well. We can manufacture everything. But we had issues when we tried to solve issues outside of our engineering school environment. Our solutions weren't always as good as they could be. So if we have a solution for education in Africa, what we think is the problem generally is never the problem. So we said the best way to solve that problem is to give the technology we have to the people that solve the problem, show them how to use it and let them solve their own problems. So from that, we've started this Rapid Foundation as a charity project. We distribute technology, so 3D printers, and it could be laser scanning systems and kind of low-cost electronics to projects that we help set up overseas. We train and educate people there, and then we leave them to be innovative and creative. We will give them all the help they want, but we intentionally stay far away to let them innovate as much as they want. So I think currently we have things in 9 countries, I think, at the minute, and we want some more going forward. So that's what we do with the Rapid.
Colin, thank you. I'll get you to pass the microphone to Charlotte. Charlotte, can you tell me about how you came to UCD?
I can, and I first have to say that a couple of months ago I brought my 16-year-old son to UCD Engineering. It was an open night, and after listening to Colin talking, he's already told me he's coming to UCD to study engineering, so thanks Colin. Job done. I came to UCD through the Access course, and I suppose to explain how I ended up doing that at that stage in my life, I left school originally in the 1980s when there were no jobs and there was no grants, third level education grants. In fact, of the 72 girls that started in my year, only 28 of them made it to their leaving certificate. And I have a very vivid memory when I was 15 of my neighbour saying to my mother, are you going to send her down the road to the factory, you know, to get a job now? And my mother, thankfully, I think she created the feminist in me, said, no, my son has done his leaving cert, so my daughter will. And I was in the kitchen going, yes, you know, I get to go on. So I carried on, but nobody in my school went to third level education. It just wasn't a done thing. So I left school, went off to Belgium because all I could think of was learning to speak French. There was very little career guidance. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I don't think anybody does at that age. So I meandered through life for a couple of decades. I did a 1-year course in Colborough Street actually in tourism, and I wanted to work in tourism. I wanted to travel the world and meet people. That was the naive idea I had, but I did it through the travel business, and I worked my way up there until I spent about 8 years in the UK in an airline, doing great, lining the pockets of capitalists, and all the time having an issue with it. But anyway, I came home after giving birth to our second child and didn't intend to be a stay-at-home mother. It wasn't the plan, but haven't the time to tell you how that worked out. But I ended up being a stay-at-home mother, not terribly happy with it. And then realised I was so far outside of the travel industry that I wanted to begin again. So in beginning again, I sort of dug deep and thought about what it was I wanted to do, and I wanted to go back to education. I had done I've certificates and diplomas coming out of my arms, but I wanted to go to a real university and have a real degree. And so I applied to come to UCD, and I was a reluctant access person at the beginning, I have to admit, because I applied straight through the CAO and I did a mature student assessment test, and I didn't get in first time. They wouldn't let me in. And I was so disappointed about that. But in the letter they said I should go and have a look at the Access course. So I looked at the Access course and somehow felt it was for people who couldn't read and write. It was my initial reaction to it. I don't know why I took that But I phoned Thomond and had a chat with her, and actually she sold it to me, and I came in, and the rest, as they say, is history. And I think one of the most crucial things about the Access course is, first of all, people need to know that once you get over a certain level, I think it's 60%, you are in the door. So you can forget about the stress of leaving cert and all the points, and I have a whole issue with that. And you can come to, anybody can come and do a degree, basically. So that's a really key element to get across. So basically did the Access course, went on then and did a full-time Bachelor in Social Science degree, did that full-time. I do have 3 children as well, so that was kind of busy, and then I didn't want to leave, a bit like Colin. Once you get in here, you can't get out. It's the Bermuda Triangle. And so having done the full-time Bachelor in Science, Social Science, that's 60 credits a year, and really that was about as much as I could cope with. So going to do a Master's, 90 credits, seemed like too much work to try and do along with everything else that goes on with life. So one of my lecturers suggested doing it part-time, and that actually was the best piece of advice ever, so that I could take it in slow, let it percolate, and then, you know, carry on. So I'm almost finished. I'm working on my last paper.
But along with being a part-time student, you've been working with the Irish Refugee Council during this time as well.
Oh yeah, I just coming to the end. Just coming to the end of my social science degree. I got this email saying that the Irish Refugee Council were looking for somebody to manage an education fund. And you probably all know that people in direct provision asylum, people looking for asylum in Ireland are entitled to primary and secondary education, but not third level education unless they have the money to pay for it. So this was a philanthropic organisation gave some money to the Irish Refugee Council to help people in the asylum process get to third level education. So I applied for that, and it was a couple of days a week work, which was a really good idea then, that I was doing the Masters part-time, because 3 children, a Masters and a part-time job was a little hectic. But it was really successful. In that first year we had 10 people in the asylum process then in third level education, and at the moment I have 22. This year I have 22. I stayed, I was only meant to stay for 6 months, but I've stayed for, it's over 2 years now, and I'm just about to launch into my 2017-18 programme.
I'm going to move over to Anne. Someone's going to move the microphone over here.
Thank you.
You're currently studying for a Master's in Food Business Strategy. Can you tell me about how you came to UCD?
Yeah, so I came to UCD in September of 2012. I sat my leaving cert and came through the DARE scheme. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 5 years old, and I came from a very small school, and the supports I received were excellent throughout my schooling. There was 14 pupils in my year when I sat my leaving cert. So I was quite daunted at the prospect of coming to such a large university, but I knew if I wanted to study agriculture, this was the place I needed to go. But those fears were completely unfounded. As soon as I came in, I met Lisa, and with her help and support, I've had a level playing field throughout my university time. I've managed to achieve 2 awards during my undergraduate degree, and I graduated last year with a first class honours, and I'm in Michael Smurfit now, studying away.
I know that you've helped out other students who are coming into UCD, and I read in one of the Access booklets a few years ago that you said that your decision to tell people about dyslexia was it's a personal decision, but it was important for you to be open about that. Why?
Well, I think, you know, it's a personal decision whether you just decide to disclose a disability or not, but it's part of who I am, and it's made me who I am today. And I'd like to be able to say to people, you know, it doesn't hold you back, it doesn't make you any different, it's you, and you can't change that. And you might as well be proud of who you are and stand up and say, I've worked hard to get here today, and this is my work, and whether dyslexia or not, I was still going to try and get to where I am today. And I think if I even help one person by saying I'm dyslexic and to come to college, or to give them the inspiration, then that's one more person. So that's that.
You said you were diagnosed at 5. One of my daughter's friends, her older sister, who's 10, has just been diagnosed with dyslexia. Her parents are quite upset about this. I'm just wondering what you would say to them or to her, and maybe their concerns that it's going to hold her back in terms of education later on.
Well, I have to say, in regards to that, my parents were absolutely wonderful, because I have an older brother and he's dyslexic, and he's achieved phenomenal things, and my parents never said like it's going to hold you back. They never let us use it as an excuse. I took higher level Irish and higher level French in my leaving certificate. You know, okay, so things are a little bit difficult, but you find another way around it. As my father always says, the impossible just takes a little bit longer, and you work through it. And you know, it's who you are, and you can't change it with all the wishing and hoping. It's who you are, and it's in you, and you have to learn how to embrace it and then overcome these challenges. It's always going to be part of you, but it doesn't have to be an issue.
I'll get you to pass the microphone to Billy there. Billy, can you tell us about your entry to UCD, which was an interesting route, I think we'll turn with us.
Yeah, I left school at 15 in the UK, London, so didn't take GCSEs, did nothing like that. Came over to Ireland a couple of times, came over on a 2-week holiday and stayed, met a girl and didn't go back, so I moved over at 18 by myself. Over the next couple of years, or the next few years, up until around the time of the financial crisis, worked in kind of low sector jobs and low paid jobs. We had 3 children, had a mortgage. Unfortunately, as we all know, everything collapsed. We lost the house, and me and my wife both lost our jobs. We moved back to Lucan, where my in-laws were, and got some support from those, and I managed to find a job working in Musgraves. I was there for 3 months and suffered a brain seizure out of the blue, completely out of the blue. Wasn't expecting it at all, and unfortunately, as I was on a probation contract, I was again unemployed, private rental accommodation, really bad place. And a friend of mine encouraged me. He said, "Listen, you have a head on your shoulders. You deserve more than what you've had. Go to university. It's easy." I was umming and ahhing about it. I was umming and ahhing and wasn't too sure, and he said just to come for a cup of coffee here. He had done the Access program and he had just finished a master's degree. So I came in for a cup of coffee. He walked up to the old Access Centre, said, "This is Thurmond, I'll be back in a moment," and half an hour later I was signed up to the Access program. Yeah, and it was the best thing that ever happened. I took archaeology in the first semester of Access, and the staff that they had, Maureen Doyle, who took the archaeology module in the first semester, it was a brilliant introduction. The staff and the study skills really made sure that this is doable. It's not a huge thing that's beyond anybody. It doesn't matter if you don't have any prior qualifications or any kind of disability or anything holding you back. The support is there, you can get in, you can do it. So that's how I ended up here, and I've got my exam results today for first year and going into second year, taking a single major in archaeology.
Congratulations. How have you found the year?
Good. I'm in love with it. It's a lot better than moving boxes in a warehouse or doing anything else like that. You know, it's I'd rather spend 12 hours in the library than a 12-hour shift anywhere else ever again. But yeah, it's great, and again, like Melissa said during the video, you know, it's great to be a role model to my children and to kind of show them, you know, education doesn't stop at the Leaving Cert, and you know, you don't want to be that parent that kind of says, "Listen, you kind of have to go to school," but to really actually show them the benefit and the things that you can do. It's not just the learning, but the people that you meet, and the access that you have to different opportunities, not just academic.
Why did you leave at 15?
I just had a really bad experience with school. I suppose I was stubborn. I wanted to learn what I wanted to learn. I wanted to read what I wanted to read. I wasn't really in an encouraging school. Everyone in our school, there's a comedian, Mickey Flanagan, who says his school produces white van drivers, or we was the school that took stuff to the vans. It wasn't a great school to go in, and I spent time, I'd amount to nothing. I'd never do well in secondary school and stuff like that, so I just left, and my granddad had taught me how to use a soldering iron and fix electronics, so I figured, well, IT, nobody knows how to fix computers, and YouTube didn't exist where people could figure it out themselves, so I'd be an IT technician, and that didn't go too well, and hence in Ireland.
Elaine, can you tell me about your time in UCD and how you came here?
Well, I'm beginning to feel a little bit like a fossil here, because I came to UCD in the late 1980s. And there were no access programs or any other programs. I have had impaired vision all my life, so when I came to college, I went to speak to the people in the social science department and explained to them that I had impaired vision, and could I have permission to please record lectures, and would they mind if I photocopied all their overheads. And I have to say the attitude in UCD was really open. I think it was quite a relatively new experience for them. There for the university, there was a lady in the registrar's office called Carmel Bevan, who was assigned to any student who had any difference or any issues. So I was trotted over to meet with Carmel Bevan, and I have to say, for all of the students who were there at that time, Carmel Bevan was our saviour. We needed anything, it was over to Carmel. How will I do this? What will I do? How will I manage? Whatever. So a group of us got together and set up a college society for students with disabilities. We found a church bench and we sat it outside the porter's office, and we made a sign, Society for Students with Disabilities. And anybody who knew anyone, and this is very un-PC, I know, but you know, I have moved on, but so we set up this society. We got together anyone who knew anyone who had any sort of a disability, and we were going to sort the college out because the college needed to be reorganised. So we wrote a letter to all of the lecturers in relation to how they could accommodate students with all the various disabilities. So there's a paragraph on students with hearing impairments, a paragraph on epilepsy, paragraph on dyslexia, paragraph on vision impairment, and it was all very practical. And we embarked on the whole thing of making the university physically accessible as well. And we set up a whole campaign to stop people parking on the one or two ramps that did, or parking bikes on the one or two ramps that did exist. And so there was a whole access program began around that time under Professor John Kelly, who was the registrar. So we distributed 650 letters by hand to all of the lecturers here. We met with Professor Kelly, who was really determined to make UCD a much better place for students with disabilities. So we talked about, I was very keen that UCD would become the Berkeley of Europe, basically, because Berkeley was known as having good access for students with disabilities. So thereafter, the access program was launched. We, from the Society for Students with Disabilities, a university committee which comprised of lecturers and students was an access committee was set up. Then we developed the National Association for Higher Education Access and Disability, otherwise known as NADCHI, which then became AHEAD. So most of you will be familiar with AHEAD, but it was launched as NADCHI here in UCD in about 1991, I think, with President Mary Robinson and a lot of other important people who were there at the time. So after I finished social science, I negotiated a role for myself as the first liaison officer for students with disabilities, and I really, I never intended to work in this area at all. I never thought I'd ever work with anyone who had a disability, but in my time here I really, I suppose I realised how committed I was to the whole thing of equality and access and justice for everybody and inclusion and participation and all those good things. So, you know, if they told me I could do it for nothing, I was really keen to do this for a year. So they paid me $6,500 for the year, and I set up in an old porter's office, and it kind of all developed from there. There were contacts made with all the voluntary organisations, Irish Wheelchair Association, the Organisation for People with Dyslexia, I can't remember the name of it, National Association for Deaf People, National Council for the Blind, and gradually we got different things implemented, grants for technology. There was no technology. I've talked to some students here, and people now, the world has changed, you know, people get things when they come to college, they get equipment that they need, but we had, through John Kelly, we were applying for grants through the HEA for people to get the equipment that they needed. And there was a great barter system went on. So I recorded my lectures for the first while and then spent hours up in a room up here in the library typing them out. So there wasn't much time for social life, but it was endless. So then I got very fast at typing. So I started typing lectures on a little electronic typewriter at the time. And the barter system was that at the time the World Cup was on, there were various matches on. So there were various lads in my class who wanted to go to the matches, so they wanted copies of my lecture notes. So for 1 hour's reading from me, because I had a lot of reading to do and I needed people to read for me. So for 1 hour's reading, they could have 1 hour's lecture notes, and it worked out quite well for all of us. So there was a lot of informal structure set up at the same time as the formal arrangements were being made. I have to say, I am blown away by this and all the ways now of accessing college and this whole centre and the work that's going on in UCD. It's incredible to come back all those years later and to see how it's developed.
Elaine, there have been huge changes since you were here, but what more can UCD do to widen access to people?
I don't know, because I'm in a little bit of shock here as to what there is now. I think all universities now have programs. Most colleges have access programs and facilities. I suppose it's important. Technology plays a huge part in people's lives. I would say to any university, including UCD, to make sure to keep up with the current technology that's available, you know, and for students to always know who to go to, and that's going right back to us and Carmel Bevan, and obviously there's an awful lot of people involved now, but it's a very daunting prospect to be in a big university and not be sure who to turn to. I'm presuming all that happens like clockwork here now, so because I'm not part of the current arrangements here, I don't know what more they can do. All I hear from UCD is really positive stuff, and I still work in the area of disability, and so I do hear a lot of positive feedback from people who have attended UCD. I think I suppose preparation for employment starts much younger than people go to university. So I think if there's any role for a university earlier on in terms of preparing teachers and teacher training and that kind of thing, and even work with parents so that the bar is raised. I think one of the biggest barriers for people with disabilities is low expectation, and that's from people ourselves, from parents, from teachers, and I think anything that can be done that helps people to realise that they have a potential and they can achieve that potential, but a lot of work needs to go into helping people to realise that.
Billy, you're not alone in terms of teenagers who drop out of the school system, but not as many will go on to find education later on, and yet there is potential for almost everybody who leaves the school system early to find some way back into education later in life. What could UCD or indeed other universities do to encourage more people for whom they feel the school system either failed them or they failed the school system in younger years to come back?
Well, I think, as has just been said, UCD and most other colleges seem to be doing a lot of work, and as I say, coming in through the access course, it really did show to me that I was able to do it, even though I didn't have a GCSE or a Leaving Cert equivalent. But I do think, again, it needs to be on a national level and an early level to try to encourage, you know, some critical thinking and analysis in younger age. We tend to think that kids are sponges and you have to give them all this information, teaching the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, but we never get them to examine the why and the how things actually happen. So, you know, I noticed with my eldest daughter now, she's starting in secondary school, and they are encouraging more kind of things like philosophy and sociology subjects and stuff like this, just to try and encourage people to go on a little bit further. And I think definitely as well, working with communities to show that, as I said, education doesn't stop at second level. It's not until you get to university that you can actually be your own person, you can use your own brain. It's a memory test up until that point, you know, and then when you get to university, that's when your ideas, no matter where in the spectrum they sit, politically or socially, anything like that, you can come in, you can examine that, you can champion it, or you can change your opinion through that kind of thing. And it's only in third level education that really comes into play. And as I said, if you look at anybody, you can be in secondary school and be told you're not going to get anywhere, you will be at the bottom of the ladder, where, you know, there's so many people that get passed by because they don't have that encouragement, or they're not in a community where it's encouraged to go on to third level. You finish, as I said, I'm in a family who, as I've said, finance would be a huge thing, and obviously kids pick this up. I would hate for my kids to feel that they have to leave school at 16 and get into work and start earning money. Money will come later, as I say to them. You can all be millionaires, you just have to get your degrees and your stuff first, and then do something you enjoy. And then the money that comes in afterwards, you'll enjoy what you're doing. That will be a secondary factor.
And I mentioned at the start that certainly I got through university with the help of a lot of people, and all of you have mentioned either various people who you mentioned your own parents being very encouraging to you when you were younger. But despite all that level of encouragement, that need for somebody to intervene, I think Billy, you mentioned about how somebody had literally brought you here to the Access Programme. A lot of it does come down to your own personal drive, because that is certainly the thing that people find going from secondary school to university through whatever route, is that you are to some extent, despite all the help that's there, you are on your own. It is down to you to achieve this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is down to you, but I think as well, you know, as you're aware, there is the support there that you need, and I think that's really important. That sometimes people get into universities, and you came from my school like mine, there's 14 pupils in my year, and suddenly there's 300 in your year. There's more in mine than in my entire school. It's a big change. You have to realise that the supports are there, and you just have to ask for them. And I couldn't stress enough to students that if you engage early and you engage often with, you know, the likes of the Access Centre or even your lecturers, you know, with the supports that you need, you can get them. And just because when you come in the first week in college you get the supports that you had in secondary school put in place, you know, in college, doesn't mean they're going to be the same supports that you need throughout your time in education. You're not the same person you are when you come into university at 18 as when you leave when you're 23, or in my case 24, 5 years so far. You know, so why should your supports and your needs be the same? And okay, you need to have self-motivation and self-drive, but you've managed to get this far, so you have to keep going, and you need to be aware that you're changing and that your needs are changing and your supports will be changing, and have to ask for that help also.
Charlotte, I don't mean this to be a leading question because of your work with the Irish Refugee Council, but while access to education has been widened out, who's left out? Who's still finding it very difficult to get access to third level or to further education?
I think you only have to look at some of those reports where, you know, there are different parts of Dublin, different parts of the country, where there are very low uptake of people going from second to third level education. And I think that has to be looked at. If universities are really serious about opening their doors to a diverse range of people, you need to go to those, I think you need to get out into those schools and talk to those, the career guidance teachers, and find out what is stopping people. And it's not always money. Money is a big issue. I think we all probably agree that we need to get rid of the cost, you know, for students. There needs to be free third level education for anybody who wants it. And I am a big advocate of third level education, but I think we also need to realise that not everybody needs to go to third level education. You know, we don't all need to have degrees, and I feel that we're shoving, this is becoming really clear to me now because I have teenage children, we're shoving everybody in the one direction, you know, and it's all about literacy and numeracy, and all the other ways you learn are being left to one side. I don't know how you deal with that, but it's an institutional problem, I think. But in order to get a diverse range of people in here, you need to go and ask the people, whether it's, as I said, in certain parts of Dublin, or whether it might be, if you want to increase the traveller intake, you need to go and talk to people in Paving Point and say, how can we get your community in here? Or in the case of asylum seekers, you need to go to the likes of the Irish Refugee Council or one of the several other NGOs that deal with that, and ask, how can we get asylum seekers in here? And I would suggest that the Access might think about offering 1 or 2 places a year to people in the asylum process, and let them come in and let them, you know, start to build a life for themselves. Invite them in.
Colin, is money still the primary barrier for a lot of people who are still being left out?
No, a lot of it is down. Well, everything revolves around money in the world, unfortunately. Whether you can or can't, there's lots of people that would love to, but just cannot for whatever reason. But like everyone has said now, it's the ability or the recognition that you can actually do it. So an awful lot of the stuff, because I'm an engineer and I'm working in technology so often, lots of people kind of see it as a white castle in the distance that they can't surpass the wall. It's big, it's flashy, it's technology. I don't know. Loads of people saying, I can't do that. I could never be in. So it's a kind of, it's a familiarity with a university structure. So even like a university or even other third level or any sort of formal education, if you've dropped out of the loop, it is massively intimidating to look at or interact with, and the interactions with coming into a university. So like lots of cases, people were brought in, so Billy was brought in here. That's good, but he had the way in. Lots of other people don't get the way in. So, and I think Ireland probably has the potential to be one of the best places in the world for it because we are so community based. So I do a lot of technology engagement with people all the time. So groups of people that have, I don't want to call them, old school manual skills that they have fallen out of favour in the technological world. So like fishermen and net makers that in a lot of instances have huge amounts of practical, real life, common sense problem solving skills. But how are they going to interact with the university unless there's a certain event to do it? So community-based events, I think, are the best way to do that. So UCD is having a festival tomorrow. So I'm going to show all of my work to everybody, be it 6-year-olds, be it 60-year-olds, be it anybody. Everyone will get to come and do it and engage. But what I found is the community aspect is probably, I think, one of the keys to break into it. As soon as one person has a really good interaction with it, the word of that interaction spreads around the local communities. And it doesn't become a distant element, it becomes a familiar one. As I was working, I went into UCD, they said what we do is really useful, they could use it, and then the word goes around, and then you get requests come in, and then more people come to see events and get engaged, and then that's, to me, the spark at the beginning, the bit to start the questioning, can I do that? You know what I mean? Or even better, if you can do that. So lots of people can't do that, so you can't go to a public event and people can't have a part in solving breast cancer. It's very difficult to do. But lots of other things, they can do something. You could do a blood test, you could do a little scientific sample experiment. Everything hands-on to open up the access port. So in that case, you've done it once. So anyone that's done a workshop with me, or even your son came to the event, he's an engineer now, so he did an event, he paid attention, he's done it already. So in that case, he's done it already, it's not alien, he's had an impact, he's had a connection with it. And then he will have a familiarity with it to grow on at events and open days, and that career guidance teachers can build on. And in that instance, what we found, so like a lot of so my school was very underprivileged as well for college uptake rates. They were extremely low. They're still not that much better. But what we found in that instance, the people that do go to college go on to do some amazing things. But still lots of secondary schools, due to time and money and financial constraints, don't have the time or the ability to highlight them well enough. So people don't know. So a lot of people don't know some of the stuff that's happened from the school we went to, and unless they interact with somebody, it doesn't kind of flow up to the surface.
What's been the hardest thing about being a student here?
Yeah, that's being a student then. All of it. Exams, can we get rid of them? Honestly, the way academia in general, and it's not just UCD, it's everywhere that does academia and higher level education, the way it is based and the way it is structured. So lots of pillars, lots of ivory towers, lots of very kind of stacked structure in how hierarchical levels work in groups and sectors and industries and everything, which for many, many years was the only way it could be. But now with the advent of technology, so I can collaborate with someone in India in 5 minutes time. It's changed. Those structures changed. So that to me, I think, is going to be a big growth spot in it, is how the academic structure in every institution will have to change to incorporate people that don't have a formal education but have the skills you need. So this is like some of my multifunction teams, some of the teams that we have people from absolutely any walk of life with any level of skill. They work with us because they're really good at what they do, and that's what we need. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So a change to the structure, I think, will be quite nice, and especially to integrate students. So students are guilty of being patchy and washy as well. I'm sure everyone will agree with that. It's that they express lots of interest but then drop away. But if you are a first year student, you can have significant inputs to these research projects. You've lived a life, you've had experiences, you've done things, you've seen things, you know people. So if the structure could change a little bit maybe to help incorporate the value that the students bring at such an early stage. Not like you can contribute into a research project when you're doing a master's degree. It doesn't matter. From your very first day, if your answer's right and mine's wrong, you're still right. It doesn't matter if it offends me or not. That's my problem, not yours. Like, it's that sort of thing. I think would be quite good and a nice change to it. So the structure can be quite daunting, and I think that structure then is a disadvantage to a lot of people that come in non-standard routes. So you come in a non-standard route, you have to ask somebody for help or advice, and it can be quite intimidating if the person is a big shining light, holy godlike figure. It's hard to go up and say, look, I'm having some trouble, can you help, or can I do it slightly differently? So that I think is a big problem.
Charlotte, what's been the hardest aspect for you as a student here?
The volume of reading and the amount of time that it takes to read, I think, was the hardest thing. Initially, when I came into the Access course, the hardest thing was, in fact, being a mature student was quite difficult because you felt all the time that everybody was looking at you like as if you were their mother. And it really was, although some of the people here in UCD had said to me, in fact, the mature student advisor had said to me, don't be afraid to walk into any building. You belong here now, you are one of us, you can walk in any door and it is your room, it is your building. And that gave me great confidence. So it takes quite a while before you feel like you belong, that you should be here. Or the other good piece of advice was, he said, just walk around with your head held high, they'll think you're a lecturer or a PhD student. So I tried that for a while. But what's the hardest is just the work volume and what's expected, really.
Sure. Anne, can I ask you the same question? What's the most difficult thing about being a student here?
I'd have to agree with Cheryl with this, especially with my dyslexia. I found the volume of reading just phenomenal. But one really minor thing, and I know it's very small, but the UCD population is getting bigger and bigger, and the facilities are brilliant, but some of the facilities aren't keeping up. So I used to find, in particular, coming up to exam time, trying to queue from 7:30 in the morning outside for desks, and people would leave their stuff and then go off for the day, and that's quite difficult, and maybe that needs to be addressed, especially when you're looking for a good study space. It can be really difficult, but other than that, I found I've thoroughly enjoyed my time.
Billy, the hardest thing for you as a student here?
I think it's just been said, trying to find a seat at break time is probably one of the hardest
Hold
things
on to that
do.
one, yeah.
It's usually one of the hardest. You have to find a corner somewhere where nobody's found yet. But yeah, like everybody said as well, UCD makes it easier to be a student. You know, it is hard. You come in, especially with no kind of experience or not really knowing what to expect, and you come in and there's so many people around. It's a big place, and you're told all these places are open, and you just go and talk to anybody. But I know for myself, you're always kind of unsure of the protocol, and I think I've spoken to everybody in the School of Archaeology now. I've never addressed them as doctor or professor. I'm not sure if I've stepped on anybody's toes, but I just walk in, oh, how's it going, Hayden? Could I have a chat or something? And I think that was the best thing that kind of helped coming into university was, I'm not a little student, no matter my age or background. I have something to give, as every student does eventually have something to give. It may take some longer than others to get it out, but most of the staff of schools that I've worked or have approached have been more than friendly, welcome, opening, and really helping to make you feel part of a community, which is the hardest thing that really, as you come in as a first year, just finding where you fit in a huge population. You know, there's so many people around. You kind of get in and go, where am I supposed to go? You know, what do I do? So, as I said, with the help of the staff, I found it really helped.
Elaine, what was the best thing about being a student here?
Oh, I was busy thinking about the negatives.
Oh, go for it.
I just presumed I was going to be asked the same question. What was the best thing?
You can do the politician thing and just answer whatever question you want.
I'll leave that for another day. I'll leave that for Morning Ireland. The best thing for me, I think, is the friends that I made here. Like I still have very good friends. Now I did come back. You know, there is something about UCD. I did come back to do a master's here again. So, but I have really good friends, and I think, I suppose for anybody when you start, UCD is a really daunting place. It's huge, and it was huge then, and it's even bigger now. So I think for everybody the thing is to find a community that works for you, to make it smaller. So a big place can become smaller when you get to know people and you have people around you. So you know your peers, your colleagues, your friends. Yeah, so for me, the best thing was the friends that I made, and obviously I suppose it helped me to discover myself and to realise what I was committed to in life, and that shaped the rest of my career since that.
Elaine, Billy, Anne, Sharon and Colin, thank you all very much. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation, for asking me to chair this discussion today. I've come back to a couple of universities in the last couple of years, and the nature of the job means that sometimes you get asked to do stuff like this, although you really aren't qualified for it at all. But I'm continuously really impressed by any of the students. I mean, it's kind of one of the reasons why I keep coming back, because when you've been 8 years in university, parties, which had to be dragged out of there in the first place, still wants to go back every now and again. I wouldn't want to go back to the studying or the reading, but just to be around people like yourselves is always lovely. So thank you very much for your company today. Thank you.
Thank you.